Tonight's show is brought to you by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Well, the whole season is falling apart. Ever since Michael came out there and cursed him, and now Sandra's hurt out for who knows how long, and we're going to watch Frankie Montas come in. Frankie Montas can't get out little leaguers. And then we got Miguel here smiling as he gets tattooed. Blackburn getting tattooed. The Mets are going to give up 9 runs a game. 9 runs a game, and then they're Buster Bulls, and they're never going to get another win again.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hey everybody, and thank you for joining us here tonight in an impromptu episode of On Deck. I could not resist going with the Frank the Tank intro. We love Frank the Tank here in Braves country. Been supporting his weight loss journey for quite a long time, so credit to him for that. Love his content, especially love checking in every time the Braves and Mets go after each other. And I got to tell you, the Mets are looking awful feeble, as Frank would say. Great sweep here by the Braves to win it in dominant fashion tonight, 7-1. A lot of help from the Mets pitching, a lot of walks. We'll take it. We'll take it any way we can get it. And the Braves are looking mighty good as they move into this stretch. I told you a week ago it was the most important stretch of the year for the Braves. It was do or die. It was now or never. And so far they have really showed up. And they look a lot more like the team that we thought they would at the beginning of the year. And I don't know if it was Alex Anthopoulos coming to a microphone and speaking out. I don't know if it was the fact that they knew that the schedule ahead was going to really determine what happens this year. But whatever it was, they showed up. They are now 10 games back of the Mets for the division lead. The Mets are now tied with the Phillies. Just think about that. The Braves have really turned the division on its head one way or another, and we got a long ways to go from here. So you may be asking yourself, well, where do the Braves go from here? Well, they have 3 games against the Marlins in Miami starting tomorrow. We're going to talk about that series in just a moment. Following that, they have 4 games against New York once again, this time in the Big Apple. So they'll have to take on the Mets up at Citi Field. Following that, the Braves are back home taking on the Phillies. So still long ways to go in this stretch, long ways to go in this season. But to go from where they started this series to where they ended this series from 13-10, that's as good as you can ask for in that short sample size. But let's talk about this series against Miami, because this is just as big for the Braves, because no matter who you face, you got to gain ground. The series against Miami, I think, is, again, just as important as anything. So let's talk about it. There's a guy that got called up today, assuming he pitches tomorrow, which it seems like the case, basically to give everybody an extra day of rest. Didier Fuentes, and I'll tell you, this is a guy who has spent most of his time with Double-A this year. He's had a cup of coffee in Gwinnett. I don't think it'll be a long stint at the Major League level. That said, nobody thought Spencer Schwellenbach would have a long stint at the Major League level, and here we are, a year later. So Didier Fuentes, here's what I can tell you about him. In Double-A this year, again, where he spent most of his time, he's 0-5. He did not win a game in Double-A. 4.98 ERA across 21 innings. Again, small sample size, and I got to be honest here, the Double-A team has not exactly shown up very much this year offensively. They've been very hot and cold. In the minor leagues, your stats, they matter, but in reality, you just want the team to like your stuff. The Braves like his stuff enough to call him up to the Major League level, at least for one day, so there's something. The stat that I'd like to leave you with on Didier Fuentes is that he's got a 281 FIP. For those of you out there that are going, Tyler, I don't know the deep analytics, FIP is fielding independent percentage. It's basically, if his defense didn't matter, what would his ERA be? 281, sub 3, we'll take it. We'll see what he does at the Major League level. It's always fun to see a guy get a start to his Major League career. So Didier Fuentes, can't wait to see what you do tomorrow. Saturday, it will likely be Grant Holmes taking the mound against Miami. And then Sunday, Spencer Schwellenbach. I don't know if the Braves are going to sweep this series. But if they're not, they really need to win it. They really, really need to win it. The Marlins are last place in the division. You have to take advantage of those games, especially when the Mets and Phillies are going to be beating each other up for the next 3 games. That's the series they both have. So one or the other is losing games over the next few days. So the Braves have a chance to make up some ground here, either on the Phillies or the Mets, or maybe a little bit of both. If they can sweep and the Mets and the Phillies split the series, then they're gaining ground. So we'll have to see what happens, but either way, they could very well do something special over the next few days and over the next few weeks especially. From there, of course, they have the 4 games against the Mets in New York. That is just as important, if not more important, than the series we just had. The Braves have to show up. If at minimum, you got to split the series even down the middle. At best, you sweep it. A win in the series, one way or the other, whether it's 3 or 4, would be terrific. And the good news is Chris Sale is going to be starting that off, followed by Spencer Strider, and then whoever the Braves want to go with to finish off the 2 games following that. But it's a good mix. You know, they're in a good spot, and obviously they're going to do everything in their power to make some strides over the next few weeks. But again, that's just the beginning. You have Miami, you have the 4 games in New York, and then you have a 3-game series against Philadelphia. So a lot wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. We've talked about it. I had it circled on the calendar 2 weeks ago that this is the now or never, the do or die time. And I still think I'm correct. But when you look at the standings, the fact that the Braves are only 10 games back, and I say only 10 games back, the fact that they're 10 games back 3 days after they were 13 games back, it can fluctuate. Lord knows they can go on a losing streak just as fast as they can go on a winning streak. But that all said, the fact that they started this stretch like they did is a very good sign. Because after Alex Anthopoulos came out and said what he said, we know they're not selling. We know they're going to do everything in their power to be a contender. If that's the case, the timeline no longer ends on July 31st, right? We know they're not selling. Alex Anthopoulos has said that. So if that's the case, the Braves have all year to chase down the Mets. They got all the way to October, so let's count them up. You got the rest of this month. You have July, August, September, October. You got almost 4 months to climb back in the division. They can do that, but it's still going to be very tight. And one thing about sweeping this past series is if this does go to a tiebreaker with the Mets, you got a 3-0 advantage on them at the moment. So we'll have to see. Obviously, I don't think as many people are going to be focused on this series against Miami. But that all said, the series against Miami, again, is just as important. So great game. The offense showed up. The Mets pitching, again, helped out with walks. The pitching was solid. The relievers were solid. 7-1 victory. You know, that's a good win no matter who you're facing. The fact that it was a first-place team, even better. And the fact that it was the Mets, will take it. So very excited about the win, and we'll have to see how the Braves draw it up. But it's looking like on Friday it's going to be Didier Fuentes. That's tomorrow. Grant Holmes will pitch on Saturday. Schwellenbach on Sunday. I imagine Chris Sale will take the mound on Monday unless they want to do something to, again, give him an extra day of rest, especially after throwing 8 2/3 and 120 some odd pitches. And it's looking like Spencer Strider on Tuesday. We'll have to see if they shift it, but that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Didier Fuentes, one little note on him once again. The first Columbus Clingstone to be called up to the major league level that was not named Craig Kimbrell. So a little notch in the history books for Fuentes already. Hopefully he can make some waves tomorrow, even if it is a short stint. Hopefully he can show that he can pitch at the major league level. That would be a really good thing to see. And there's been a lot said over the past couple of years about the Braves farm system. I have kind of a bird's eye view of it. I cover the Columbus AA Clingstones, which is the AA Braves. And I'll tell you, the offense is light. There's a few guys, Ethan Workinger, David McCabe, Zabrowski can hit. There's a few guys that can hit. In terms of top prospects, though, you're looking at pitching. J.R. Ritchie, first round draft pick a few years ago. He's at the AA level right now. Blake Burkhalter is at the AA level right now. Ian Mejia at the AA level right now. A lot of solid arms there at the AA level. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of those guys get opportunities throughout the year, especially to give some guys some extra rest, specifically Chris Sale. It just wouldn't surprise me at all. We'll have to see how it goes, but all in all, great series against the Mets here. I can't say enough about it. I mean, just if you wanted to know, like if you're a Braves fan and you wanted this series to go a certain way, how much better could it have been than by a sweep? And I see Charles Pruitt in the comments. I see a lot of people in the comments saying how sweep it is. No doubt about it, how sweep it is. Guys, we're going to go through all the comments when we get back. It's not going to be a long stream tonight, but I wanted to get on, and talk about this because this is a huge moment in a potential comeback for the Braves. No doubt about it. I want you to be a part of it, though. So make sure to get your comments in if you're watching. If you have not already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can be up to date with everything going on right here at On Deck. And again, if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, okay? That way you know when we're live and you can join the chat just like everybody else. That said, guys, we'll be right back. We're going to pay the bills, and of course, stay with us. Get your comments in. Super chats, get those in. We had a lot of you guys super chat last night. Really would appreciate it. They do help the channel. They also put you first in line in the comment section. So get them in, and of course, we'll read you first. We'll be right back.
In 2025, we're hammering down high prices at Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika. New GMC Sierra 4x4 crew cabs, discounted up to $12,000 off. GMC Terrain with a roomy cabin and pro safety, discounted up to $7,000 off. Enjoy the new year with no payments for 120 days. Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. GlennSmith.com. Get ready to smile. In 2025, we're hammering down high prices at Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. New Chevy Silverado 4x4 crew cabs, discounted up to $12,000 off. Brand new 2025 Chevy Equinox, the compact SUV with high-tech features, discounted up to $5,000 off. Enjoy the new year with no payments for 120 days. Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. GlennSmith.com. Get ready to smile.
A lot of folks in the chat happy about the sweep. That goes without saying. I'm looking at you, Jeff Berry, Jake Hobby, Jameson Taylor, Yasuki Knight, Lady Braves, 1993, Z-Corp Alpha. A lot of folks in the chat happy about this. Again, rightfully so. Thank you all for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. But I want to start tonight with a comment from Jake Hobby. Strider starting to look like his old self, just not throwing 100 plus anymore. I'm okay with that. You can pitch without throwing over 100 miles an hour. And I said this a long time ago talking about Strider. I was worried about him being a starter because he threw over 100 miles per hour every pitch. I didn't think it was sustainable. I think what he's doing right now is. And that's the difference. I would rather Strider pitch another 12, 13 years in his career and have a long career, successful career, as opposed to him throw 105 miles per hour on every pitch and have a 2-year career, right? We want him to be healthy, especially since we signed him long term, but also just because I want Strider to have a healthy, successful career. I think what he's doing right now is a lot more sustainable. I don't know if he's ramping it up to get higher. I don't know that he needs to. He's been awful successful the past few weeks against really good lineups doing what he's done. He had 13 strikeouts. I think he had 8 tonight, 8 or 9. He's looked really good, and he's done that because he's changing speeds, he's locating, and he's looked like himself. He's keeping hitters guessing, which is exactly what Chris Sale was doing the other night. That's why he's looked so good, is that no one knows what he's going to do. The slider is untouchable, and his fastball is good enough, right? 96 is still pretty darn hard to hit if you're not looking for it, especially if you're not looking for it in a certain location. That's what makes a good pitcher. Leo Mazzoni always said, if you can change speeds and locate, it doesn't matter how fast it is. If it's 30 miles an hour versus 50 miles an hour, you still got to time it up. Now, obviously, nobody's throwing 30 miles an hour in the big leagues, but you get my point. If that's the case, if you can change speeds, what is 2 or 3 miles per hour difference really going to do for you? It may make you an elite reliever. It may give you a slight edge. But if you're lacking control or if you're possibly going to be hurt, what is it really worth? That's to me is how I judge it and how I look at it. I think Strider, I don't know that Strider's looking at it that way. He may be trying to get it up back to 100 plus. I don't know. I think he's still capable of it. I just think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I've had a UCL operation already. I've already missed a year of my career. Let's not miss another, at least anytime soon. So I think that's at least part of it. Lady Braves 1993 says her favorite part of the game was the fans chanting in the 8th inning that Juan Soto was overrated. You're not wrong. You're not the first person that's told me that. I had a phone conversation with a good friend of mine earlier, and he said the best part was they were chanting overrated. Here's what I'll say about it. I don't know if Soto's overrated. What I do know is one thing that is not overrated is the crowd at Truist Park. The fact that it was a sellout on a Thursday night, obviously you're taking on the Mets. It's a big series. I get it. But the fact that it's a sellout pretty much all week for this Mets series says a lot. And I mean, really, not to anyone's surprise, but really all year long there's been sellouts, even when the Braves weren't doing well. The crowd may not have been as into it as they were tonight, but they've been really solid, and that's a credit to Braves country, supporting the team. No matter what. I've heard some people say, when the team's not playing well, we shouldn't show up. I disagree. I think that has the opposite effect of your intent. I think if you show up and you support, it tends to have a positive effect on the team's play. And look, they count on the fans, getting in the ears of Juan Soto. Think about how much it affected Spencer Strider to pitch in Citizens Bank Ballpark a couple of years ago with those fans. I'm not condoning a lot of what those fans did, but that works a lot of times. And the fact that the fans tonight showed up the way they did and really showed up in this series, to me, makes a lot of the difference. Jonathan Yang, the Braves definitely needed that sweep to keep the momentum going. With the 10-game stretch. Yeah, I mean, there's more to go. I think we do have 10 games. Yeah, so 3 with Miami, 4 with the Mets, and then another 3. So they need to keep it going for the next 10 games, especially the games with the Mets and the Phillies. Obviously, it's going to be tough to hold that momentum and hold that consistency over 10 games. But either way, they're going to have to try to do that. And obviously, the series in Miami just as important. I don't care if they're playing the Tigers or the Cubs or the White Sox or the Orioles. It doesn't matter. Every game is important right now, as far back as they are in the standings, whether it be for wild card or whether it be for the division, right? The division, I said a couple weeks ago, I thought the division might be out of it, might be lost already. That probably wasn't fair to say, but in the heat of the moment, that's kind of how I felt. It's like, if this is how we're going to play, I don't know that the division is reachable if we're 13 games back and we're not playing well. This kind of changed my opinion because I've seen the Braves come back from 10.5. Granted, it was May, not June, but I've seen it happen before. It's a long ways to go, but you do have 4 games against the Mets, later this week or next week, I guess. It's right here, right? So if they show up big in that series as well, you really have turned this division on its head in a drastic way. And look, I think if the Braves come back and Acuna stays hot, he could be on the path to a second MVP. That's where we're headed. And I don't know if that'll happen, but that to me is where they're headed. So right now, the Braves are 5.5 back of the wild card. They're 11. No, that's not right. They're 10 games back of the division. I'm not even sure that that's right. Sorry, this website that I used is probably not updated. But they're around 5 games back of the wild card. They are 10 games back in the division. They're marching towards it. No doubt about it. And, look, even if the Braves at this point, even if they were to get to just the wild card game, let's say they don't win the division and that doesn't happen, they're dangerous in the playoffs. They're a team you don't want to be matched up against in the playoffs. And I said that last year. I still believed it. I still believe it even though they lost. They were outmatched against the Padres, but make no mistake, there were a lot of Padres fans going, please don't let us lose to the Braves on this year where they've had all these injuries, because how embarrassing that would be, that the Braves, with all of the adversity that they had last year, to lose to them, right? no disrespect to the Braves last year, but that wouldn't have been the ideal situation for Padres fans. You got to think whoever gets matched up with the Braves this year, they're dangerous. You have a Cy Young Award winner, multiple-time Cy Young Award winner, but a recent Cy Young Award winner in Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach, who's been terrific, Strider, I don't even need to give you an explanation there, just as your starting three. In a wild card series, that is tough. That is not easy. And the bullpen, say what you want, but if Reisel's firing, that's solid. They do have a couple pieces, Pierce Johnson, guys that they can depend on, but you move Grant Holmes to the bullpen, I think we can win every game in a wild card series. Now, that's going to get a little question once you get to a 5-game series or a 7-game series, especially coming out of a wild card series. But they're dangerous in a wild card set. No doubt about that. I wouldn't want to face them. I'll put it to you that way. Jeff Barry says the 680 broadcast is making fun of the Mets pitcher that couldn't throw a pitch without his pitch comp. Oh, yeah, that's what I was listening to. I listened to 680 quite a bit. They were having some fun with it. And Joe Simpson, I agree with this sentiment. The whole, I can't hear, sorry. I'm sorry, but didn't we just have 150 years of baseball prior to the pitch comp system where this told you what pitch to throw? Am I missing? Can we not revert back to that? To me, based on what I heard, because I was in the car during that, based on what I heard, it sounded to me like it was an excuse to stall and catch our breath and talk about it. Even then, you still couldn't throw a strike. So, it is what it is. But, we'll see. Jonathan Roberson has a super chat. Appreciate that. Remember, super chats do get you pushed to the front of the line. They also really do support the channel. They go right back into the fund for equipment, for getting us to games, travel, whatever may have you. They go directly to that. So if you want the channel to be better, super chat. Donate to the channel. We really would appreciate that. Jonathan Roberson, Braves sweep. Mr. Met begs blooper for mercy. Wow. Let's hope he can do that with the Philly Fanatic here in a couple weeks, too. So, to me, this was a dominant win. I feel like we stole one in the first game. Again, with Schwellenbach on the mound, they were up 4-1. We came back and we were able to pull it off in extras. That's great. We'll take those wins just as much as dominant wins. But the past 2 games, especially tonight, it was domination. And anytime you win the first 2, you kind of go into the third it'd be nice to win this. But the Braves were clearly playing no, we need to win this game. They were patient at the plate, which I liked, especially with how many walks were being given up. We weren't overly aggressive, which was a nice, refreshing change of pace. So that was nice. We hit well, we pitched well, and there's a lot to be excited about. No doubt about that. Elder is listed for Sunday. Well, you can blame ChatGPT for giving me. I'm just kidding. I didn't use ChatGPT. I basically was guesstimating. So Elder is listed for Sunday. I don't know if that'll happen or not. Schwellenbach could. They can do a lot of shifting around, right? This Didier Fuentes thing kind of really shifts it because I believe Bryce Elder, in theory, could pitch tomorrow if he wanted to. But, that's kind of where we're at. It's just tough to kind of know what's going on exactly. But we'll have to see. They're being very strategic with the pitching staff, right? They wanted to make sure they had Sale and Strider and Schwellenbach for this Mets series. It wouldn't surprise me if they try to do a similar thing with the Mets next week because the Marlins aren't exactly worrisome. They can beat you, but they're not worrisome you don't want to plan for them. You want to plan for the Mets. So right now, in theory, they already have Chris Sale and Strider lined up for that. Schwellenbach, if he is to pitch Sunday, would obviously miss the Mets series, so you could be right. You could plug Bryce Elder into the Sunday game and then have Schwellenbach for Monday, push Sale back to Tuesday, Strider back to Wednesday, give everybody an extra day of rest, and then for the next Thursday, you pick, right, depending on where you are in the series, who you want to go with. So a lot of different ways it can go. I wouldn't mind if Elder pitches Sunday and then you push back the rotation a day and the extra rest seems to work for Sale. Hopefully it'd be great if he could get a 9-inning full complete game next week just to prove a point. But we'll see. we'll see. Vision Music Works tunes in. I'm glad you tuned in. I went specifically looking for your comment to reply to let you know we were going live. I know you haven't been getting the notifications. Glad you're able to make it tonight. Really do appreciate you being here. Jeff Barry says, we know this team is way better than what they've shown this year. They just needed to get out of last year's slump that was riddled with injuries. I think Acuna coming back really did help with that. It might not have had the instant effect, but there's no doubt what he's done. I mean, 8 homers in 22 games or whatever he's done. He's hitting almost 400. The OPS is over 1,100. I mean, he's been absolutely nuts, right? The only thing he's not doing is stealing bases, which I think we're all okay with. If it means he's in the batter's box, I don't care so much if he's threatening on the base pass. If he can hit and field, we're good. And that's kind of what I've been wondering how aggressive he's going to be. It's clear that he's not being that aggressive, and again, I'm very much okay with that, at least on the base pass. Jeffrey Humphreys tunes in. Let's see. D. Arelas 93, 10 games back. Let's see. Jeff Nelson, that should be our goal right now, make the playoffs. No, I think the goal is still to win the division. As much as we have heard from Snit over the years of it starts with winning the division, even when the new playoff system was brought in, it starts with winning the division. They believe winning the division makes the year, right? Whatever happens in the playoffs is secondary to winning the division in a lot of cases. And the reason that is because that's what's been implemented over the course of the franchise's history, especially dating back to the 90s and early 2000s, right? I just dropped a short a couple days ago from Leo Mazzoni from that interview, and I asked about 14 straight and whether or not he would have liked to have won another World Series. And he basically said, I wouldn't trade 1 division title or 2 division titles for a World Series because nobody will ever do 14 straight again. Look, I thought the current Braves organization was on the path to winning another 10 or 12 straight or maybe 14, and they got to 6, and that's kind of where it ended, so maybe they can ramp it back up. But 14 straight is tough. That is a consistent program, organization, top to bottom dominance that is hard to do. And the fact they were able to do it says a lot. So that carries over into today's generation. And Snit comes from the school of Bobby Cox. He wants to win the division. I don't care if he's 10 games back, 30 games back. The goal is always to win the division. That said, if you don't win the division and you do make the playoffs, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. You're okay with it. As long as you make the playoffs and stride towards, possibly winning a World Series. Look, if you make the playoffs, you're in a wild card series, and you go on to win the World Series, nobody's going to be looking for that division title banner, right? Nobody's going to care. So that, to me, is the new way of thinking. That's, how we have to think about it. But in the locker room, the goal is always going to be win the division. And look, in the regular season, that's as high of a goal as you can have, is winning your division. That's as high as the regular season goals go. And that's what's so impressive about the 14 straight is that the Braves won their division 14 years in a row. They got the highest regular season honor as a team 14 straight years in a row. So there's nothing wrong with having that goal, really, no matter where you're at, as long as you're at that point. So that's kind of how I feel about it. In terms of how the team should go about it or how the organization should look at it, I don't know that Alex Anthopoulos is sitting there going, oh, we got to win the division. What are we going to – I think at this point he's probably counting his dollars and going, look, if we make the playoffs after this start, I'm good because we have a chance at the dance, and that's great. As candid as he got this week too and as honest and open as he was, I think that it kind of goes to say, like, look, this year has not gone the way we thought. So if we don't win the division, but we make the playoffs, we'll take that. But we're still going to shoot for the stars or shoot for the moon and hope we land among the stars, right? There's a motivational banner for you. I think that was up in my middle school hallway, if I'm not mistaken. The Critical Thinker Hey, Tyler, should we play Profar even though he can't help in the postseason, or should we get more outfield help at the trade deadline? Well, you can ask me what I think. I don't think it much matters what I think. Alex Anthopoulos was asked yesterday morning, what his thoughts are on Profar and whether or not he's going to get a clean slate. And he said, oh, yeah, he's going to get a second chance. They believe in the player. In terms of the PED use, basically, he didn't go into detail. He couldn't go into detail, but he basically said after getting further context, he kind of not understood it because there's no excuse, but he did understand it more. He's not condoning it. He's not saying Profar was right. He was clearly wrong, but he understood the situation a little bit more clearly. Hopefully one day we get more details. I'd like to hear Profar's side of things, and maybe that can help other players kind of know what to look out for if, there is such a thing to look out for. I don't know how much of it was on purpose. Surely Profar is not going to tell you that it was on purpose. I don't know that it was on purpose. I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything. But based on what Double A said, it was clearly an accident, a misstep. Profar has owned up to, and we're moving on. He will get a clean slate. In terms of the postseason, I don't know that you need outfield help, right? You got Verdugo, you got guys that you can roll with. We'll have to see how the deadline goes. You could very well go get additional outfield help, but to me, I think the deadline will be surrounded with bullpen moves. You may see another move or two. Alex Anthopoulos likes to think for the future sometimes at the deadline. You very well could see something happen, but I don't know that it's really going to be position player related. I think if anything, you may add a starting pitcher. That would be the real shocker, but I don't think they'll do anything position player related. If they do, it'll either be a shortstop or it'll be an outfielder. But even then, you have Profar locked up for 3 years. They've already said they're not making any moves with anybody locked up long term, and he means the starters. He's not going to make any move like that that's locked up for a long time. But you could see some moves for guys that, I think you're going to see relievers primarily coming in. In terms of what do we have to trade, basically what I could tell you, we did a little research last night. I think Jared Kelenic is a solid trade piece because, we're sitting here talking about outfield depth. We have outfield depth in the minor leagues right now in Jared Kelenic, and it may not be something that you're dying to go for, but I'm just telling you, in terms of guys we could go get, there's a long list of relievers that could very well, have our name on it. There's, basically, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but you have Abner Uribe from the Brewers. You could trade a couple of prospects for him. You have Cano from the Orioles. You could throw in a Jared Kelenic and a couple of prospects and maybe land him. Hunter Gaddis from the Guardians. And this is just basic stuff that we've barely even really looked into. I just kind of wanted to throw some names out there. There's relievers that are under the radar moves, and that's what Alex Anthopoulos has always been very good at, is under the radar moves that other people aren't thinking about. They're always going for the mainstream guys. And, you could go for the mainstream guys. I just don't think that's in the mold of Alex Anthopoulos. And I try to be realistic. So that's a couple of names you can go look up. Look at their Baseball Reference. Just guys that could be attainable and guys that, frankly, we could give something back for. So just keep that in mind. All righty. A lot of folks in the chat. Jeff Nelson says, more attainable goal is to go for wild card. If you get there, then dig in and make a run for the decision. Well, it's a difference in philosophy there, Jeff. Nothing wrong with what you're saying, but the Braves, again, have always been division first. And I don't see them being anything different right now. Let's see. Jonathan Yang, the Braves need offensive help in left field and shortstop instead of playing Nick Allen every day, even though he has defensive skills. He doesn't just have defensive skills. I think he is the best defensive shortstop possibly in the game. He has been absolutely phenomenal. You can sit here and pick apart his offense. I don't discount that. I definitely think they'll upgrade. I don't know if they'll upgrade this year or, in the off season. But I do think that's an eventual upgrade. The other thing you got to think about is you do have a shortstop prospect in the minors in Nacho Alvarez. I don't know if the Braves believe in him or not. I don't know what their, pulse meter on him is. But if it's high, then they don't want to go spending money on a shortstop. Doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. They'd rather pay Nacho the rookie deals of what they were able to do for a lot of these guys, lock them up long term. Again, I don't know that that's what their intent is. I don't know, nor do anybody in the chat, right? So we'll have to wait and see. But the way they're playing it, Double A had a good point, which is what I've said. What deal was made over the offseason that you're looking at going, oh, man, I wish the Braves did that. We missed out big. Everybody was talking about Willy Adames at one point. He's got more errors than just about any shortstop in the game this year. And, say what you want about Nick Allen and what he doesn't do offensively. He does a lot defensively, and that matters too. So Willy Adames isn't the only one, but there wasn't a lot of shortstops on the market for an affordable rate that I was like, yeah, the Braves should. That makes sense, especially considering we were still at the time on the Arcia train. Arcia, of course, didn't work out. We all know that. I was not necessarily a believer of the Orlando Arcia project, but I was definitely a supporter and we got to give it a chance mindset. That's kind of where I was at because you did have such a good deal with him. And look, Orlando, far from perfect, no doubt there, but there for a few years, there were very few defensive shortstops that were better. I thought he fit the team well. I think they showed that the other week in Colorado with all the players going up to him and talking and all that good stuff. So, Orlando was still in the picture. And you also got to remember, the Braves picked Orlando Arcia over Vaughn Grissom when it wasn't a very popular decision, right? A lot of folks wanted us to buy into Vaughn Grissom. They put Vaughn Grissom out there. Defensively, he wasn't ready. It is what it is. And they did everything they could to work with him, including Ron Washington giving his best shot, at trying to make something happen. You see right here, doing everything he could to get Vaughn Grissom ready to go, and it just wasn't there. So the Braves went with Orlando, and, again, say what you want about that decision, but at the time it was the only decision because shortstop, at least in the Braves organization right now, is still a defensive first position, as is catcher, right? That's why Contreras didn't work out. A lot of pitchers didn't want to throw to him. We found that out later, but his biggest default was that he struggled behind the plate, not at the plate. Well, Vaughn Grissom struggled in the field, not at the plate. Orlando began to kind of struggle a little bit at both. You could always kind of say, well, what he doesn't give you with his bat, he gives you with his glove. And it just, basically the patience had worn out with Orlando Arcia. They made a move. They traded him. They brought in Nick Allen. And defensively, he's been lights out. So as long as he's doing that, I'm not saying his job is safe because the moment they feel like Nacho Alvarez is ready to go, they're going to call him up. The moment they feel like they got a deal in the works where they could get an elite shortstop for an affordable price, they're going to do it. Nick Allen is not a staple that we're cementing forever, but he is a guy that they're going to, agree to marry probably at least till the deadline. And I would assume longer than that, at least to the offseason, in my opinion. He's been good for the clubhouse. He's been good in the field. Again, what he doesn't give you offensively, he gives you triple in defense. And I think we got to learn to love it. That's just kind of how I feel. Now, in terms of left field, they've already said they're going with Profar, and that's what I'm going to choose to believe. Jeff Berry asks, who are some relief pitchers that Double-A may go after? I'm going to do a deep dive into that prior to my honeymoon in a couple weeks. But what I'll tell you is this. I listed off a few a minute ago, and I don't want to go through those again. But, Mason Miller was brought up. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think you want to think too high. Somebody that did get brought up to me the other day that I found not extremely possible but interesting was Hunter Strickland. He's looked really good with the Angels this year. I believe he's got like a sub-3 ERA, something like that. Let me look up his stats. Of all people, my brother brought this up, and unfortunately, as aggravating as my brother can be, he is pretty good at that stuff. He likes to go search through Baseball Reference and find guys. Makes us a good little team and stuff like this. But Hunter Strickland, I'm sorry, he's got a 0 ERA in 13 games, 1 save. So he's not a closer, but he could be a solid reliever. And in case you don't remember who Hunter Strickland is, that's the guy who Bryce Harper threw the helmet at a few years ago in that fight. So, that's one guy. I don't want to get any deeper, but that's a guy who has had success this year, but would not be that hard to get. Like, he's probably moving at the deadline. The Angels aren't very good. And I think that's kind of what you have to go with, right? So we'll see. Kelenic is doing well at the minors. That he is. But I don't think you want to pull him. I don't know that you want to pull him up to the majors, because if you are going to trade him, you want him to keep doing well down in the minors. You want that perception to be out there. Philip Nichols, Kelenic has the talent. He's just in his own head too much. I don't disagree. Definitely a good trade piece for the right guy, no doubt about that. Jeff Barry says the best thing is to win as much as possible, and if you can win the division, heck yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, James McCann is also in AAA. He could be traded. Catchers are at a premium always, so that is a very possible, trade piece. And because he's not going to come up to the majors, Drake Baldwin has proven himself. Sean Murphy's not going anywhere as far as we know, so could very well mean that James McCann gets traded. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Never a bad thing to have depth at catcher, but at the same time, sometimes you got to allocate your resources, and McCann very well could be on the way out, especially after he mouthed off a few weeks ago about the Kimbrel situation. He was named AAA Player of the Month, so there's something to be said for that. Jeff Nelson, too much time off if you win the division, like leaving a Coke of Cola open for too long and it goes flat. Yeah, speaking of which, appreciate that excuse. Coca-Cola, we are looking for sponsors. Jeffrey Humphrey says, I wasn't a big Nick Allen fan earlier, but his glove and arm has been very impressive. No doubt about that. Nick is slick. Indeed he is. Jeffrey Humphrey says, I like Garcia and hope that he has success wherever he goes. I agree. He's been doing well in Colorado so far. Let's see. Hope we can sweep the Marlins. Yeah, we gotta. It'd be great if we could. It's like playing the Rockies, right? Like, it's one of those where it's just you feel like you got to take every game if possible. Jake Hobby says, Ozzie scared me last night when he fell after getting hit in the knee. Well, look, I've been hit in the knee before, and I have knee issues. If I got hit in the knee like that with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball or whatever he got hit with, I'd probably drop like a sack of potatoes. Good to see that he was back on the field today and back in the box, so that's a good sign. But, yeah, never a fun time to see one of your starters getting hit in the knee. So, obviously, glad he's all right. That said, that is the end of the chat. If you want to get any last-minute things in, super chat, and I'll read them, but we're going to end it there. Again, really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Can't ask you for anything more, but really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the intro. I took special time to do that. That's why we got on late, but appreciate you doing that. Obviously, appreciate all you guys watching. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Really would appreciate it. We're dropping content literally every day, trying our best to keep consistent, and we're going to continue on. We're going to be here all the way up until that Philly series. I can't guarantee that we're going to be live every night, but we're going to try to do it as much as we possibly can. We want to be a part of it. We want to do it with you, and we want you to do it with us. So if you could, subscribe to be a part of it. Of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you do know when we go live, and, of course, all that good stuff. Thank you for your constant support. We really do appreciate it here at the channel. Sergeant Gibby, you're going to be the last one we read tonight. Frank the Tank has the best jingles. Oh, so feeble, so lifeless and feeble. The Mets are a dumpster fire. They're always teasing. They are never pleasing. What a way to end it. What a way to end the stream tonight. And For all you guys thanking me, no, thank you. Really do appreciate it. Good night. And there's no better way for me to let you go than what I'm about to do. But before we go, one final thank you goes out to our sponsor, Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. They've been great for the past couple of years, really helping this channel grow. And, obviously we're trying to continue to do that. So if there's anybody out there that would like to sponsor a YouTube channel, we're clean. We keep it clean, and we're not going to change that. And we're pretty good folks. So we would always appreciate the support. That said, guys, we want to leave you tonight with a very special friend of mine. So that all said, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Well, the whole season is falling apart. Ever since Michael K went out there and cursed him, and now Sandra's hurt out for who knows how long, and then we're going to watch Frankie Montas come in. Frankie Montas can't get out little leaguers. And then we got Miguel here smiling as he gets tattooed. Blackbird getting tattooed. The Mets are going to give up 9 runs a game. 9 runs a game, and then the Bulls are never going to get another win again.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.